Did it get this way? I am constantly astonished reading some of the employment practices that seem to be the norm in the US. I am in Europe. Things like no paid holidays, no parental leave, being fired for no reason with no notice, having to find your own cover if off sick, being expected to work extra hours as a norm, etc. My question is, how did it get this way? How did the development of workers' rights in the rest of the world bypass the US, and why did you allow it? Corporations hold all the power now. Wages are not aligned with the cost of living. People vote against their self-interests or believe they will be the next Jeff Bezos. Corporations aren't really held accountable. My employer didn't pay me for 2 weeks and I'm still waiting for the Labor Department to do anything about it. A little bit at a time. Employers, corporations, etc. just keep taking and it becomes the norm. Eventually it's just how things have always been done. We have megacore that are 100 monopolies, they collide to fix prices, wages, and no one stops them. Politicians are bought and paid for, the Republican versus Democrat fight is just theater. We re-elect the same corrupt person over and over because the other option is that guy. Can't let the other side run things, better re-elect the person we think can win, even if they are a decrepit elder lich. Maybe I'm just being cynical, but I think a lot of it had to do with the worship of the rich. So many people in this country developed this mindset that the rich will save us all and that giving them all the benefits and opportunities possible will allow everyone else to be showered in wealth. There is so much corruption in the US Gov that they're willing to let things be as they are so the politicians can continue receiving donations from large corporations and individual wealthy types. Basically the rich run the US, but the way the US markets itself is the opposite. We're a country governed by the people, for the people. Unfortunately, corporations are considered people. I blame it mostly on when corporations were given the same rights as human citizens. After that, private funding to senators, governors and other lobbyists became the norm. Kinda like how the governor of Texas's top donor is a construction company. I'm sure that had absolutely nothing to do with the water break right being cancelled for construction workers. Not American, but from my POV too goddamn many people in America work 2-3 jobs, like 16 hours or some. I don't think those poor souls don't have the mental physical capacity to awaken, they are even struggling to stay awake physically. Also, the mental distractions or doctrination of buy consume look at how we rich people live, you can do that too. I think this Western materialistic view has kind of convinced people to live like this is a normal way of living. Capitalism. End goal of capitalism is minimum cost and maximum profit with no competition. People are costs, they would prefer if you were rapidly breeding, young dying, slaves. It maximizes profits. Just about everything shitty and sucky currently, it started with Reagan. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the US government literally murdered leftists and went around expunging them from the government. They had a witch hunt complete with investigations and hearings. Then for decades, nearly a century now actually, the US government has been working hand in hand with corporations and plutocrats to ensure hegemony of the owner class. The USA is not a democracy. It is a corporate and capitalist plutocracy. The reason the country shits on all the people so much is because the people are not in charge. Well, when one group of people repeatedly vote against their own self-interests because they believe they will one day be the ones doing the oppressing, it isn't hard to see how things are the way they are. Europe is the new American dream. Short answer: Protestant work ethic. Imagine entire society always making political decisions as if they are or expect one day to be the employer. Why is thing wrong in America? A racism, extreme Christianity, or capitalism, usually by way of Ronald Reagan. Honestly, as an American, I've kind of given up hope this country is ever going to get better. People are so brainwashed against any substantial change that would actually make a difference it feels impossible. I honestly believe this country is a sinking ship. It's gonna be a slow sink, but a sink nonetheless. lead-based paint. Because America is an oligarchy. Because, in the 50s and 60s, a bunch of fucking assholes said workers' rights is communism and it's been all downhill from there. The Red Scare in this country which, at least in my opinion, was never even really that good to begin with. You all really underestimate how big a threat young boomers counterculture hippies were to the one psyche. Everything since the 60s has been a clawing back to a pre-Roosevelt time of the Gilded Age. That is the historical norm. There is no warfare but class warfare. It started this way. See slavery. Because Americans have been force-fed the idea of hard work earns the American dream, and working non-stop has been glorified by each successive generation until corporations realized they could exploit that and the American government decided to get in on it too. Late-stage capitalism. Our latest stage capitalism. Our politicians are responsible for this situation. Constant erosion of workers' rights. The rich developed a system of lobbying bribery that gradually corrupted the legislature into letting an oligarchy form as it drained away the prosperity of the middle class into the hands of a few. They've been turning employment into a corporate hellscape ever since by simply buying enough power to ensure nobody stops them from draining more and more. Not only did workers' rights fall behind, but they're actively undermined in an effort to turn most Americans into wage slaves. Well, basically every problem in America goes back to Ronald Reagan. It's insane how hard he fucked this country up for decades. Reagan. The Cold War instilled a paranoia of anything remotely communist socialist, including social programs. This, coupled with the election of Reagan, who once said the scariest sentence in the English language is "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," led to the stalling out of organized labor on the national stage. Just look up the air traffic controllers' strike for more, which enabled companies to enrich those at the very top while fucking over their rank and file. Reagan and Bush Jr. administrations are the main culprits. The majority of the Republican Party as a whole has been carving through labor laws for decades with little pushback from rich, corporate liberals. Now workers are divided because of culture war issues like abortion rights and Trump. The destruction of public education in red parts of the country is the biggest problem. 5 years ago you could be fired for being gay. 15 years ago you could be fired for being pregnant. 35 years ago you could be fired for being old or disabled. 60 years ago you could be fired for being black. It's called the American dream. You have to be asleep to believe it. The rich were defeated by Roosevelt and it made friend in post-civil rights whites who felt aggrieved. Trickle-down economics, and Congress continually siding with business interest over the well-being of the citizens. Follow the money. Our politicians are bought by lobbyists. They don't work for us with some exceptions. It's American exceptionalism and individualism baked into post-World War II culture. We will never escape it. The government knows a distracted worker is a placated worker. Why strike or protest when you can go see an American football game or see Taylor Swift? Reagan. Reagan. Ronald Reagan. America is a corporatocracy government system. Plain and simple. Reagan. You forgot that our health insurance is tied to our jobs, so losing one's job means losing health insurance. The answer is usually Reagan. So basically we have politicians that identify as different political parties that all get paid by the same people, ultimately through campaign donations. They then pit the lower classes against each other using a binary system of politics that they have polarized to further divide the people. Therefore we're too tired from work, hating each other and being treated poorly to band together to enact meaningful change. It started with 2 words, one person: Ronald Reagan. He began the chipping away of workers' rights and now it has reached a point where it is out of control.